All right, guys, we're going to quickly go over the 7 uses for velocity, at least what we use. Number 1 is daily readiness. We have them go up to around 80 to 85%. And one of the main lists, whether it's squatting, pulling, snatching, cleaning, and we see if if they're within their mean, their average. And if they're 10% above, then we're going to go hard. If they're 10% below, we're going to do some bodybuilding and take it to the house. And so it's a great way to make sure that you don't overtrain anybody. But there's other ways to do it, like this questionnaire. We're going to do some correlations, and I'll tell you when we do the longer video, because I'm going to go into these in detail each later. But I'll tell you the data on correlations between doing a sheet like that and also vertical leap, which we've been doing for weeks now. We have the information, so I'm just putting it together. So velocity use number 2, force velocity profile, great place to start because you'll get an idea of what quality of strength that your athletes are good or bad at. Also gives you, that's a great place to get their mean in all the different lifts, and you'll also find that just because they're fast, maybe a squat, they might not be at something else. Like deadlift, if they're a power lifter like bench press, you want to do all the different lifts. The snatch, the clean. I would recommend doing the push press as well if you're a weightlifter. And thanks to people like awesome Brian Mann, we have some solid data as to where they should be, especially when it comes to the strength lifts. And there it is. You can get that on Google. Just Google velocity-based training Brian Mann, and you'll see exactly the different strength zones. Here's an example of one of our own force velocity profiles. Those are 2 people going back and forth, and we start at 55% and work up in 5s all the way to 100%. And if somebody is slow in a certain particular area, that's what we'll target, and it makes it easy to get strong and fast and powerful without going heavy. So anytime you can do that with your weightlifter, football player, soccer player, that's the way to do it. We used it to awesomeness with Ryan Grimsland. Velocity use number 3, this is an alternative use of progression. We're going to pick a number, and instead of maxing out to see if we're getting better, we're going to see if we push the same number but faster. This very lift helped me make a great decision for him at the Junior Pan American Championships. When I saw him do 180 kilograms at 0.44, I knew that going into the clean jerk, we were going to have a very good chance to make some good calls. You can also see it as an old man. It's good instead of going heavy, you just pick a weight and go faster, like I did here. So that's what I would use. If you want to do it in season for football, it's a great way to continue to progress. If you want to do it as someone who's, like a master athlete or somebody who's just busy, maybe you're a 30-year-old accountant, you're definitely not a master, but you don't feel like going heavy, but you still want to make sure you're progressing. That's the way to do it. Less use number 4, potentiation set. That means we go somewhere around 80, 85, maybe 87%, and we try to hit it really fast, and then we do our down sets. Like here, you'll see we did a higher set, and then we did most of our sets on dynamic day at the typical 50 to 70%. And we've shown, the data shows that by doing a potentiation set, we're going to push those lower numbers even faster. That's one for Louis. I don't know if he's ever done it, but I recommend he does. Here's Ryan using bands. I definitely recommend using bands for potentiation sets and for dynamic effort. That's the day he actually used that, and it worked really well at some big numbers, pretty fast, 0.84 meters per second for a 140 kilogram squat. And it really showed, this year's been a big breakout year, and I credit a bunch of it to us using dynamic effort, and I have to admit, by using bands. So I hope you guys are taking notes on this. Also, you see our cool Flex app. It does a whole lot more than this, but you can really get a lot of data. And the key is what you do with it, though. Tracking it is one thing. Knowing what to do with it is a whole nother. But as we break each of these down, we'll get into that more. Dynamic effort within intended quality of strength. Once again, you got to do the force velocity profile to know what quality of strength you need to focus on. Let's say that you're perfect. Well, then just spend some quality time. What we do for most people who are just pretty much even down the line, we'll do one day. Day 1 is going to be a volume day, say accelerated strength. Day 2 squatting will be a dynamic effort day, and then we'll just, we'll say we'll start at 55% and we'll wave to 70 and start all over again. And then at the end, we'll do our heavy days we'll do our max effort day. And then, of course, by doing snatching, clean jerking, we're always going to be in that speed, strength, and height. We're going to get a lot of that anyway. And we do a lot of plyometrics as well, a lot of contrast training. So every single day we do that. So here's the velocity zone. I'll give you guys a quick look at it. Like I said, you can Google it and get all this. If you're if you're doing 60% and all of a sudden you're at 0.5 meters per second, well, that's the quality of strength you need to target. If you're doing 80% and you're pushing at 0.7 meters per second, then you're probably going to say to yourself, you should be going a lot heavier because you should be able to go all the way to 0.18 meters per second. So you don't have the ability to grind. You don't have that grind gear like a lot of really strong people do. All right, so moving on, our next quality strength velocity use number 6, intent and velocity loss. Look, when you're doing like your volume sets, aka hypertrophy, right? Volume is not volume. If you're going to failure all the time, you're probably getting slower. You're going to get jacked and big, but slow, and that's not powerful. So for a weightlifter, that's terrible. If you're a powerlifter, you might get away with it. Weightlifter, it'll definitely cost you. Here we have JC. He started out at 0.66 and then ends up at like 0.52. So he's right around where we want to be. Because if you guys are going, into that 40% and down like some bodybuilders, you're getting hypertrophy. Only problem is that you're getting slow twitch hypertrophy. So everything is specific. So I recommend, you want to do your work, you want to improve by getting high volume, but I would say 20% and above. So, 10% is fine, 20% is good. But when you start pushing below that or over that, then you're in trouble. Here we did 0.66 to 0.52, 21%, almost perfect. So just know that volume is not volume, but to actually, with velocity, you can track and make sure that you're specific to the sport that your athletes are playing. If they're soccer or football or basketball, you don't want them to get, being big. If they're bodybuilders, man, by all means, use velocity to make sure they're getting that. So here's an example of using our flex unit to make sure that we're not going to get that loss. So we started at that 0.53, so now we're getting down 0.48. So we're up a little bit from that rep, we're good. Getting closer to where we don't want to be.
5.
So 40 now, we hit 25% below, so we went too far. But not if you do that, look, if you do it once in a while, it's fine. You just want to avoid it as much as possible. And then the final use, max effort ceiling, just like we used with Ryan at the Pan American Championships. We can let him go heavy, but we don't have to worry about failure. You start going to that failure rate, not only are you going too slow, but you're at risk of injury. And our weightlifters are not powerlifters, so we want their squat to increase, but we don't want to get anywhere close to failure. We want to save all of our velocity or all of our recovery for snatch and clean and jerk. And so that's what you want to do if you're training football players, basketball players, same thing. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll go into all of these in detail at a later date.